What is up, guys? It is Quinn here, and in this video I'm going to be going through my week 13 start sits at the tight end position, so listing every fantasy relevant tight end as either a start, sit, or a fringe option. And I feel like the tight end position has really kind of fallen apart. It's always been pretty thin. I feel like at some point during the season you could really rely on like 10 to 12 guys. Now it seems like 6, 7, and then after that you're just kind of, taking shots in the dark. So there's going to be a lot of fringe options, not a ton of starts that I feel super confident in, but if you have a fringe option, like I wouldn't be too concerned. It's probably what like the majority of your league mates are dealing with. Also, injuries to Ertz, Goddard, it'll happen, when those things go down. If you enjoy the content, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Any fantasy questions, you drop them down below. I will respond to every single person. But let's jump into the first matchup. Thursday Night Football, we have the Bills taking on the Patriots. I feel like I talk about it every week. I really like Dawson Knox coming into the season. He just hasn't done anything to produce, to be honest. So he is going to be a sit here against the Patriots. On the other side with Hunter Henry, I have him as a fringe option. His usage on Thanksgiving was very solid, 76% route participation. He was targeted 5 times, caught 3 of them for 63 yards and a touchdown. There could have been another touchdown in there with that controversial incomplete call. So 15.3 PPR points. He's definitely someone who's playable when he has that route participation, like 70, 75 plus percent. Unfortunately, he doesn't consistently get there. So you're kind of just, hoping the usage is good. Hopefully he's not splitting opportunities with Jonnu Smith, but that's why he is in the fringe category. Then moving over to Sunday, we have the Steelers taking on the Falcons. For Pat Freiermuth on the Steelers, coming off of a down game, but still one of the tight ends who has been very consistent. He's not going to have a crazy high ceiling, but you can trust him to get you somewhere in like the 7 to 13 point range, which, doesn't sound crazy, but at the tight end position, that's pretty tough to get. On the other side with the Falcons, sitting Parker Hesse with Kyle Pitts down. Pitts really wasn't doing a ton. So, these guys filling in for him aren't going to be doing anything either. In the Broncos Ravens matchup, for me, I really liked Greg Dulcich after, his 3 straight solid performances. He's really fallen off as of late. I still have him in the fringe category just because his usage is very strong. His route participation is up there with some of the top fantasy tight ends. So the usage is there. I believe he's talented. He's just having to overcome a horrible offense led by Russell Wilson, who has just been abysmal. So he's a fringe option. Don't love it, but like if you're looking for a tight end who's potentially going to have some opportunities, he could be your guy, probably on waivers at this point. For the Ravens, Mark Andrews, obviously he is, probably the number 2 fantasy tight end behind Travis Kelce. In a divisional matchup here between the Packers and the Bears, I've got Robert Tonyan as a sit. His usage on the season has overall just been pretty disappointing. Was never really able to, take on a huge role. Always has a super limited route participation in that like 50 to 60%, which just isn't going to be getting it done for fantasy. Now on the other side with Cole Kmet, he has strung together some, really solid games. He had the back-to-back 2 touchdown performances. Hasn't put up, crazy numbers since then, but he actually had very interesting usage. Actually had 93% route participation and also led the team with 6 targets. If we can get Justin Fields back, on the field this week, I think that would be a bump for Kmet. He will vulture some touchdown opportunities with his legs, but I just think in general he raises the ceiling of this offense. If Fields is out again and they end up rolling with Simeon, I still think he's a fringe option just based on that usage. You're just not going to find a ton of tight ends running routes on 90+% of dropbacks. Now moving over to the Jaguars taking on the Lions, really just not a lot here going on at the tight end position. Evan Ingram still is running a ton of routes, and it is just leading to no production. It's honestly pretty impressive, or like impressively bad, the amount of usage that Evan Ingram has had and how it's just led to, basically nothing real life NFL and fantasy wise. So he's going to be a sit. And then for the Lions, with TJ Hawkinson gone, just nothing going on here at the tight end position. So sitting Brock Wright. In the Browns-Texans matchup, so we had David Njoku come back from that ankle injury last week, but just in a super limited capacity, was running, a super low percentage of routes. The snap share wasn't good. He definitely bounced back this week in terms of the opportunities and the usage. Had a 77% route participation, so pretty much in line with where he was early on in the season, where he was giving you strong production. He was targeted 7 times, caught 5 of them for 29 yards, and then had that one-handed, sick touchdown catch that pretty much ended up saving the Browns and leading to them winning that game. With Deshaun Watson coming in here, I think right now Njoku's a mid-tier tight end 1 with the opportunity to be a top 4, maybe even top 3 or 2 tight end rest of season if he does, kind of connect with Deshaun Watson. So I really like Njoku moving forward. On the other side with the Texans, going to be sitting Jordan Akins. He's actually had a few good games here and there, but definitely not someone who I want to be relying on, in my fantasy lineups. That offense just not pretty. Then moving over to the Jets-Vikings matchup. For the Jets, I have Tyler Conklin here as a fringe option. He's someone whose usage and opportunities has really fluctuated throughout the season. Early on, his opportunities were great when CJ Uzomah was missing time. Then Uzomah came back. Tyler Conklin, kind of fell out of favor, wasn't super involved, had that route participation in like the 50% range. He's had a few spike weeks. This was one of them, 73%, caught 3 passes for 50 yards. I think Mike White is definitely a big upgrade for him at this point, and I do think he's a fringe start if he can keep that route participation up above 70. Kind of similar with Hunter Henry, where there's just no guarantee that that will actually happen. So you're taking a shot on him, which is basically what you're doing with a lot of these fringe options. On the other side with the Vikings, love TJ Hawkinson as a very strong high-end tight end 1 start moving forward. In the Commanders-Giants game, not a ton going on here. Logan Thomas has had some decent route participation numbers, but in terms of it actually contributing to production, it just hasn't happened. For the Giants, going to be sitting Lawrence Cager. With Bellinger out, just nothing going on there for the tight ends. Now in the Titans-Eagles matchup, pretty similar story to that last matchup. Titans sitting Austin Hooper. Eagles without Dallas Goedert. Nothing going on at the tight end position, sitting Jack Stoll. In the Seahawks-Rams matchup, we continue to see Noah Fant and Will Dissly in a very even tight end split. It's unfortunate because with this offense actually performing well, I think like if Noah Fant was getting 75% route participation, he'd be a very decent fantasy option. But when they're splitting routes like 50-50, 55-45, it's just not going to happen. For the Rams, Tyler Higbee has really been a roller coaster all season long. Right now, I have him as a fringe option. Early on in the season, his opportunities were fantastic. The route participation was crazy high. His target numbers were crazy high. It was looking great. Then once he got injured, his production really fell off, like totally tanked. Went from like 8-9 targets a game to basically giving you nothing in your fantasy lineups. So that was the first major shift. Then he bounces back, has back-to-back weeks with 8 targets. So things were looking up. It was looking like he was going to, be a top 10 tight end rest of season once again. And then the usage just totally switched up in a very bad way here in week 12. He only had a 59% snap share. And then not only did he have that, pretty low snap share, he only had a 34% route participation. So he was being used primarily as a blocker, which is just, totally contrary to what we saw basically throughout the entire rest of the season. The hope here in starting Tyler Higbee or, having him as a fringe play is that this is kind of like a one-off game and he bounces back. But with that kind of usage, like if they maintain that role for him, he is completely unplayable. It seems weird that with Kupp out, they would then take the guy who was basically their number 2 target and make him a blocker. Not really sure what's going on there. He's a fringe option. Hopefully he can bounce back. But, the fluctuating is definitely frustrating for fantasy. In the Dolphins-49ers matchup, I have Gesicki here as a sit. I guess you could make the argument that he should be in the fringe territory just based on touchdown upside, but the routes haven't looked good. He doesn't have a super established role in this offense, and this is a decently tough matchup here against the 49ers. On the other side, obviously starting George Kittle. He's had some big games. He's had some, less than impressive games, but still one of the best tight ends you're going to find for fantasy. In the Chiefs-Bengals matchup, Travis Kelce, tight end 1, continued to just have a dominant season. And then I think Hayden Hurst at this point is, warranted to be a start. He's someone who early on in the season was more of a weekly fringe option, back end tight end 1, high end tight end 2. At this point with the injuries, all these fringe options, their usage going all over the place. Hayden Hurst has been pretty consistent. His overall, role has held pretty solid. So I do think he's like a, back end start. And then for the Chargers and the Raiders, both of these guys are going to be fringe options for me. Gerald Everett, the usage isn't great, but he does have that touchdown upside on this Chargers team. For the Raiders, Foster Moreau, the usage has been great. The talent just really isn't there, honestly. Like his route participation is great. He just hasn't been able to command a ton of targets. but someone who will have some touchdown upside and is just going to be on the field a lot, running a lot of routes. In the Colts Cowboys matchup on Sunday Night Football, Jelani Woods is an interesting name to look at here for the Colts because early on in the season, this was like a three-headed Colts tight end committee with Jelani Woods, Mo Alley-Cox, and Kylen Granson. We saw on Monday Night Football, Kylen Granson was out, so it was just Jelani Woods and Mo Alley-Cox. I was expecting, probably to see a split like we normally do, but Jelani Woods really dominated the usage over Mo Alley-Cox. He had a 69% snap share, or it might have been a 69% target share. He was targeted 9 times, or route participation. Targeted 9 times, caught 8 of them for 98 yards. So super impressive in the opportunities, he did get. We'll see if he's able to hold on to that role. I'm not overly optimistic that he will, but if they're, trying to play the most talented tight end, I think so far Jelani Woods has kind of proven that he is that guy in that tight end room. So hopefully they stick with it, but he's a fringe option because we just don't know if they will. Like if Kylen Granson comes back, we could see that route participation snap share fall back down to like 50% where he's just not going to be relevant. On the other side, I think Dalton Schultz, definitely one of the few remaining reliable tight ends on a week-to-week basis. So he is definitely a start. And then the Saints taking on the Bucks. Tough to list a tight end coming off of a goose egg as a fringe option, but Juwan Johnson, he showed he can get into the end zone. Maybe they switch to Jameis, maybe they don't. I guess he's had some success with Andy Dalton, but someone who's on a fringe option, don't love him in your lineup, but with the state of the tight end position, sometimes you just got to roll with what you got. And then for the Buccaneers, unfortunate that with Cam Brate back, Cade Otton's role has definitely been minimized. Another one of my grievances I have with the Buccaneers, Cade Otton has just proven to be the better pass catcher, yet they allow Cam Brate to run more routes. It's frustrating for fantasy because it makes the tight end position useless for the Bucs, but both of those guys are going to be sits with the current setup. That is going to wrap it up for every single Week 13 tight end matchup. I have the start sits out for every other position, running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks. If you haven't seen any of those, go check them out if you are interested. Thank you guys for stopping by. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Any questions, drop them down below. Thank you guys again, and I will see you in the next one.